Welcome back. We continue to follow the latest from today's Supreme Court decision, unanimously ruling to keep Trump on the ballot in Colorado. Let's bring in now Christina Bobb, an attorney and advisor for Donald Trump. Christina, welcome to National Report. Thanks for coming on. We've been covering this again since the news broke at 10 that Donald Trump can be on the primary ballot. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this ruling, a unanimous one from SCOTUS.
Yeah, I think it's a great ruling, of course. I love the fact that it's unanimous. You know, many of us have been saying that we expected a unanimous ruling because the law was so clear on this issue. There were a couple different ways that they could go. I'm glad that they used the rationale that they did, saying that it will take an act of Congress to determine how Section 3 should be implemented, because that puts to bed all of these cases. We don't have to continue to fight all these cases in several different states. So I think it was a great ruling. I think it's a great result.
And we had the Colorado Secretary of State again we're still putting together again reaction that we're seeing online. Obviously those for and against, but it's hard to argue against a unanimous decision because you do have three liberal leaning judges on the panel, those still coming down again with a decision to overturn what the Colorado State Supreme Court ruled that Trump could be banned, citing the 14th Amendment, Section 3, the insurrection clause, and they've overturned that here. But nevertheless, again, you've seen the Secretary of State in Colorado hit back on that and not pleased with this ruling. I'm curious to know maybe your response to those that are still pushing, again, the other side of it, despite what the Supreme Court has already ruled on.
Well, let's remember, it's not just the Supreme Court. Yes, I love that this is a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court, but this case has been brought in over 24 states. And every single court, and remind you that most of these states are liberal. You know, they're not going to bring these in conservative states. So in almost 24 very liberal blue jurisdictions, all the judges have come to this decision. So it's unanimous with the Supreme Court. It's almost unanimous with every other court, and then you have one or two courts that are crying about it, saying, no, it's not what we want. Well, tough. It's the law. It's the way the law works. And many, many liberal judges have sided with the fact that Donald Trump belongs on the ballot.
And, Christina, while we've got you, and again, this is a totally different decision, potentially could be coming our way from SCOTUS, having to do with another Trump-adjacent case, that immunity case. We know the makeup of the court. We've seen today's ruling. Does this give you any insight as to how they might rule when it comes to presidential immunity and the Jack Smith January 6th case?
Yeah. Well, as far as how this relates to Jack Smith's case, I think it's a huge blow. I mean, obviously, he didn't even bother to charge the president with insurrection because there's no evidence that he incited an insurrection. But even still, it just hammers home the fact that no matter what Jack Smith does, Donald Trump is going to be on the ballot, and he's very likely going to be the next president of the United States. As far as how SCOTUS rules on presidential immunity, I saw the quote that you had from Amy Coney Barrett up earlier saying, look, we solved a politically charged issue unanimously. All right, well, let's see how you do with the presidential immunity issue, because that one is much more politically charged. And I don't know how they're going to rule on it. That one is a harder political question. Legally, I think it's very clear that the president has immunity for his acts in office. That's been the precedent for almost all of the history of our country. So I think that is also a clear legal ruling, but I think it's a much harder political question. So I'll be real curious to see how they fall. I don't think that will be unanimous, but I don't know how they'll come out on that one.